How are you?
Good, good. I wanted to answer your questions because I just got your email. Are you okay with being on the record?
Absolutely. I'd love to be on the record. Um, is I just sat down for lunch. If this is the only time you're available, I can break for lunch if you're available in 10 minutes.
I
Can I
am
call you
kind of
back?
on a tight schedule today, so if you can do
Okay,
it
okay.
now.
Let me just sit down on my computer just a moment, please.
Sure.
Um, so thanks for giving me a call back.
You're welcome. It's an exciting topic for us.
Yes, yes. So as you probably saw in the email, you know, the reason I reached out is because one of your cases was consolidated, or looks like it was consolidated. I can't tell. It had Ian's name listed as one of the complainants in one of the cases. And I know there are other cases that involve Look Ahead America. But you know, I was looking into cases filed by Totes Legit, right, which is an anonymous requester. Anyway, that's why I reached out to you. I know that Look Ahead America has been involved in similar type of work, and I'd like to include your efforts and experience. While that's not the main focus of the article, you know, I got into this looking into what Totes Legit was doing because there was some discussion about that anonymous complainer in a recent state election board meeting, and I have a bunch of documents on it. I did want to also reflect and include information about other complaints and challenges of ineligible voters in Georgia.
Sure. Yeah. So we just to summarize, we in advance of the 2022 elections, we do a lot of work. We've been doing a lot of work now in Virginia, helping make sure people show up and vote. We do most of our budget's directed towards voter turnout operations and voter registration operations. But on the other side, we also want to make sure the elections are secure and there's integrity. So we have tools that often, which are also available to counties and states, but they don't really take advantage of them that often, to help prevent illegal ballots from being cast. And the state of Georgia is a very special case because we did a lot of work in the 2020 election, also advanced of the 2022 election, where we identified individuals that we suspected were worthy of further investigation from the state in terms of whether or not they should be able to have ballots cast in their name. Okay, and most recently we had some really good success on, I think it was October 4th. The State Board of Elections took our evidence and found that we had identified what appears to be an illegally cast ballot, and they unanimously voted to refer it to the Attorney General's office. So, but we've got quite a few other open cases with them. I don't think there are too many that they've rejected from us, but they're just open cases, and we don't control, you know, when they decide to move forward. It's a sort of a process where the Secretary of State's investigators investigate. Then they bring it to the State Board of Elections. State Board of Elections decide whether or not it's a legit case or not, and then they vote to send it to the AG or to take some other action. And this was a case where the investigators said, okay, there's something here. I think it's worthy of a recommendation to the AG. The State Board of Elections agree and kick it over to the AG. So that was SCB 2022-365. I know you're talking about 354, but I'd be happy to talk about what we do in terms of research and providing data to citizens to be able to make complaints.
Sure, and I was there at the SEB meeting. I'll look up that case. I had recorded all, whatever it was, 10 hours. So
well, if you go to look
at that
if you go to Look Ahead America's website, lookaheadamerica.org, and go to the news section, we have that 3.5 minutes clipped, so you can just go look at that.
Okay, great. I will do that. Good. So, you know, I'd just like to hear a little bit about your work in identifying potential ineligible and double voters. It does seem like it's somewhat, you know, you aren't the only organization or individual doing this work, but it does seem like you've been doing it too. You've been doing it in not just in Georgia, but in other states, and referring these cases to the state of Georgia. So tell me, if you can, kind of big picture, right? What is the motivation and maybe
Well,
not
sure.
motivation is
Our
the best
motive.
word, but what are you doing, and what is the reason for it,
Well,
right? And is it your hope? And I think one point is my understanding of your work is that it's more identifying potential problems rather than necessarily saying conclusively that these people are ineligible or illegal. I don't think you're making that extreme, I shouldn't say extreme, but definitive of an allegation, right? You're finding people who look suspicious and asking for further investigation.
right, and we're also very careful to not necessarily accuse people of casting illegal ballots, because we can identify there's a difference between a legal ballot and a legal voter, a legal vote and a legal voter, because you might, I am still registered to vote in South Carolina, right? And I'm a resident and registered voter in Virginia. This is where I vote. I don't. South Carolina should have long taken me off their list, but they haven't in my county. So if I show up as having voted in South Carolina, well, that looks like an illegal vote, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I was the one that cast it. So just want to be very clear in terms of the language that we use, and we also avoid mentioning names of anybody. We submit the data with all that stuff to the county, to the state, whatever. We've had a lot of success in Georgia. We've had about over 30 counties that we've approached with evidence of illegal voters remove them. I think in one county they removed a couple hundred people. And the ways we identify it is really two methods. One is that they are registered at an illegal location, and we found that a lot of this in 2020, where they would register at a P.O. box, then disguise it as an apartment when they fill out their voter registration form. Excuse me. The other case is where they would tell the Postal Service that they're permanently leaving the state. Not temporarily, but permanently moving the state. They permanently want their mail forwarded. And in the state of Georgia, that alone is not sufficient evidence to get any action taken. But if we find out that they permanently moved, and then we look them up and we find that they also registered to vote in that new state, well, then it reaches the threshold, which was the case with 365. So we do this in quite a few states, and often in some states, we're a small organization, so we create these data sets for a county of folks that have, according to the government records, told the government, I'm permanently leaving, or were registered at a location that's not allowed in Georgia, mailbox, express, FedEx store, postal office with boxes. Say, okay, this doesn't look right. So we give that to county people in counties. I think hundreds of people in Georgia had access to this data that we share, and it's all public data, just government databases being put together, and gave them instructions on what steps to take next.
Good. Can you quantify? You said 30 counties have taken action, or you approached over 30 counties with evidence of illegal voters. Can you quantify the degree of success that Look Ahead America has had in getting ineligible voters off the rolls?
We have a lot more success at the county level around the country and again, this is just getting people removed. There's a whole nother order of magnitude of getting prosecutions, and we have gotten prosecution. We've gotten convictions of people, mostly for casting double votes. So we have 3 convictions for people casting double votes where they voted in 2 different places, which I think is a level of egregiousness that's beyond just, some incidental thing. That's you willfully, cast a ballot twice in 2 places. But again, we have had more success in most places on the county level because you've got 160 counties or something. So we've, we just find a county where people are willing to look at it, and they take a look at it. Some counties, they completely ignore us. We've had counties around the country where they say, even though the sheriff agrees it's an illegal vote, the investigators agree it's an illegal vote, the Board of Elections agrees it's a legal vote, the prosecutor says, don't think there's enough evidence. So it's really hit or miss. And at the state level, it's also very difficult. But we're just very grateful that we've got, counties, and now the state of Georgia seems to be moving on our open cases.
If I were to round numbers, rough numbers, how, 100, 200, 500, a few dozen? I mean, how could I, is it possible to say how many voters have been removed in Georgia because of your information?
I don't have that at my fingertips. Just the numbers that we've been able to that I have at my fingertips are that in Georgia alone, the State Board of Elections investigations opened into 24 voters, and I'll give you revise the earlier number is that 22 counties in Georgia have removed voters from their rolls as of August of this year. After we brought these registrations, and Rockdale County alone removed 43 of them. I think that was the one that was the most. So just revising my earlier numbers. But we just keep submitting it, and there's prosecutorial discretion, and there's it's a sensitive subject and all that kind of stuff. But look, the reason we're doing it is because again, our big emphasis on registering and turning out to vote disaffected patriotic Americans with rural and blue collar backgrounds. And one of the things that discourages people from voting is they think it's all rigged and fraudulent. Well, if we're doing the work trying to prevent fraudulent votes from being captured, what we hope it to do is, in addition to ensuring clean elections, is restore people's confidence in the election system. So look, we're not out there making crazy claims that we can't back up. Everything we say we can back up with data, with evidence, and we've been doing that for a couple of years, or now I guess 3 years now, since the 2020 general election.
And you were talking fast. I did miss one sentence in there. One of the things that discourages people from voting is thinking that it's all rigged and fraudulent. After that, you said something to the effect of, building voter confidence.
Right. So we're out there doing the work, identifying illegal ballots, bringing them before county boards of elections, county prosecutors, county sheriffs, Attorney General, Secretary of State, state boards of elections, and we are having some success. We're having limited success, but we're having some success. And I think that knowledge that there's a group like us doing this can help restore some confidence in the system. So somebody who might not believe a vote matters, maybe they're convinced that maybe it will matter, maybe I should vote, which is sort of what we think is the highest objective we have. Apart from obviously trying to make sure the elections are clean. Nobody wants to have an election tainted by fraud.
Right. And I know every case is different, but there's a difference between a double voter and someone who is registered at a UPS store because they thought it was okay, right? What remedy is? I mean, a double voting, I get the sense that you would prefer those be prosecuted. What remedy do you want for people who are registered at the incorrect address or illegitimate address? Is it adequate to just fix that problem, or do you think there should be further state action, either in the form of censures or fines or criminal prosecutions? In terms of what the penalty should be, I leave that to the prosecutors to look at. But I think what really matters is two things. One is that the problem is remedied, because there are different reasons that somebody might be registered at a P.O. box. Well, one might be because they don't live in the state anymore, and our ability to detect people who've moved out of the state permanently and filed an NCOA card, that only goes back about 3 years. So somebody could have been long living in Tennessee and still casting their ballots in Georgia, or voting in both places, which is really hard to detect. Honestly, it's very hard to detect as an outside organization. So what we really want is a remedy for when it's discovered. And what's the punishment? Well, it should depend on if it was just a completely innocent mistake. The problem though is it's not an innocent mistake, because if you try to fill out your voter registration form as your residence with a P.O. box, it's going to get rejected. So these are folks who are willfully disguising those addresses as suites, as units, as apartments in order to get registered. So they kind of already know they're doing something wrong. And then the question is, well, why? So it's important to keep that in mind. But the second thing, the bigger thing is that, look, states and counties should have some process internally that they can detect this on their own to prevent it from happening in the first place. And I'm disappointed that they're not doing that, and it's on the shoulders of tiny little nonprofit organizations like our own to do that work for them. excellent. Well, that's so helpful. I really appreciate you taking the time to go over this with me. I do think it's interesting, and certainly, it's case by case. Sometimes you get results, sometimes you don't. Right? Many times they are actually ineligible voters. Sometimes they just have a incorrect address, or they didn't think there was anything wrong with listing a PO box or an apartment. Right? That's believable in some cases, right? So there's a variety of outcomes, and it does look like some action is being taken in some cases, though certainly probably not as much as you'd like.
Yeah, well, look, we carry on, and I think there are some other folks in this space, but I don't think anybody does it better than Look Ahead America. I don't think there's ever been a case where we could be accused of making outrageous claims that we can't back up. And I think that beyond a reasonable doubt, when we report numbers, or we put our reports out, or we submit evidence, that everything is factual. And even if it's, let's say there's a case where somebody permanently moved out of the state and then moved back, still the county or the state should look up and confirm that. Right? The moment you tell the Postal Service you're permanently moving out of the state needs to do its job and confirm that you should be removed from the voter list. And strangely enough, even though your Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who lied about me under oath twice, or at least once, and lied twice about our work and what I was doing, lied to the January 6th Commission under oath before Congress about our work, etc., he actually used our same technique to remove over 100,000 people from your voter lists in 2021.
Excellent. Well, very good. I think that covers it pretty well. Thank you so much, and I will definitely look back at that case that was resolved in the meeting.
Good. And look, looking forward to seeing a story come out. And any other questions, just let us know, all right?
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.